Welcome to Technical Difficulties. Coming to you once more from the Haywood Industries main laboratory / Achievement Hunter recording bay number 2. I'm back here to represent you parents again this episode. Someday this quarantine will be over and our kids will be loosed upon the world again like a biblical plague of locusts. And we know how our kids perform reflects back upon us. Yes, their victories are actually our victories, and their failures are because they didn't listen hard enough. That's not your trophy, it belongs on my wall because I did all the hard work to make you. If you agree with anything I just said, please go hug your child. And part of that contract is making sure they have all the right tools to properly show the world what a great parent you are. So today, we're gonna unnerf the out of this Nerf gun. Always check to make sure it's loaded. So let's strip this thing down and see what makes it tick. Nerf modding is a huge DIY scene. Everything from just replacing a spring to building a high-pressure tank system to accelerate a dart to over 300 feet per second. It's got some really bad ideas for a couple Nerf builds that would take us way past competition, possibly street, legal. But today we're going to focus on getting the most out of this gun with just the parts I could source quickly. Nerf guns usually use one of two main ways to chuck a dart: air pressure pushing it or electric motors throwing it. This gun uses two electric motors spinning in opposite directions to throw the dart down the tube. As we've talked about before, the speed of an electric motor can be changed by increasing or decreasing the amount of voltage you send to it. This gun takes 4 AA batteries. Each AA battery provides 1.5 volts of electricity. And when you connect them in series like this, connecting them end to end, it adds the voltage together. So the total here of 4 AAs would be 6 volts. So our first mod is going to be overvolting the motors. Most Nerf mods that are doing this call for replacing the AA batteries with a larger battery pack typically used for an RC car. Sometimes it can be kind of tricky to fit those into your gun, though you can either hollow out the existing battery compartment or wedge it into one of the other loose spaces we have here. But if you don't have the right tools, it can be kind of hard to hollow out the plastic. Fortunately, one of my quick delivery options was these guys. Each one delivers 3.6 volts in the same size battery as a regular AA. Altogether, these will add up to 14.4 volts, which is more than twice the recommended voltage of these motors. Now, you're probably wondering at this point, will that make it explode my face? That's a really reasonable question. And the answer is no. But it might melt you. Overvolting a DC motor, and I keep talking about volts, but really the issue more is current rather than voltage, but anyway, throwing more power at a DC motor than it's rated for can cause it to overheat and or burst into flame. But since it's mostly made out of not burny stuff, it should be a fairly small one. Even if it doesn't though, it might shorten the life of the motor. This would be a much bigger problem if we were putting our motors under a lot of strain. Motors have two important metrics for our purposes today: RPMs and torque. RPMs is usually associated with voltage and is revolutions per minute, so how fast it'll spin it. And torque is usually associated with current, and that's how hard it has to work to spin the motor. Tossing a dart down the barrel really won't require much more torque than it takes just to spin the flywheels on this thing. But still, while setting fire to a kid's birthday Nerf party with your black market gun mods might be funny, let's try and avoid it. These motors are rated for up to 12 volts DC and 25,000 RPM. I don't know what the default motors are capable of, but let's put these in just for safety. Now, motors come in different sizes, and from what I've read online, 130 is the correct size of the motors to replace these. So let's take it out and find out. Also, I highly recommend taking a picture of these things as you're taking them apart, just so you have a better idea where everything goes. Alright, so it looks like this little motor cage is held in there with 4 screws. So up under here we've got 2 motors. They're both soldered directly onto this little PCB here, so I'm gonna have to unsolder them. And I'm not great at that, but for science. Okay, so we got to remove the solder from these motors. Now, usually you'd use what's called a solder sucker, but I just tried to go buy one and couldn't find one at Home Depot. Their soldering section ain't great. So we're gonna have to improvise a solder wick and see if that'll work. God, I wish I had my 3D printer from work. There's actually a lot of designs for these flywheel cages that you can download if you have a 3D printer. Obviously, I don't have one here at home. Otherwise, I would just print a cage and we could put the motors in it and pretend like this piece never existed. Very uncommon that many of you will have these at home, or 3D printers at home, so let's do it the way everybody will have to do it. Oh, shit. Okay. There's our old motor and our new motor. They are pretty much identical. Well, it's making me think this might work. So I took the flywheel cage out, I pulled it apart, removed the flywheels, which allows the motors and this PCB to come free. Then I unsoldered the connections on the motors, inserted the new motors, tested it, dropped it, and now I'm going to put it back together and let's see if maybe we get this to work. Then remember that you forgot to reattach the power leads before you closed it up. Not going to work great without electricity. So on the topic of power leads, I don't love this method of pushing in this little button to spin up the flywheels. Honestly, half the time it feels like you push it and it doesn't really fully engage, and there's all these little safety measures that they've got tied in. What if, instead of having those, we just put in a toggle switch where you can flip it on and off at will? Because, you know, we're all adults here on this kid's toy. Red is typically your positive, black's your negative. They've got those running over here into this little board that I guess just checks to make sure that this is engaged and this is engaged, which I think is the slide cover. But really all I need is these two hooked up as a toggle. And where should I put it? Probably right here, kind of by the thumb. There's a space there. My adult thumbs can probably reach up there and flip it down. Kids have two hands though, they'll figure it out. All of this nonsense about where, you know, it's just to keep a kid from sticking their finger in there and just launching it down the barrel. Granted, that probably wouldn't happen. You'd probably just lose a little bit of skin, but safety. Always good to test as you go. Some people may have the confidence to do this whole thing and then just assume that it will work. Put it all back together. But we here at Technical Difficulties know that that's the fool's way. We know that because we're often the fools. I'm gonna put the regular batteries back in here. We got juice. Toggle switch's opener is off or on at the moment. Hard to say. Okay, here we go. Nothing. That's good. Let me turn the toggle switch on. Yeah. So now, be able to flip this on and off with just this toggle switch. And then we feed the dart in. Wah! Shit. I haven't put the new batteries in yet either. Let's get her button back up and find out what this thing can do. Okay, so I took it outside and Dremeled down these little pieces of plastic a little bit so that this switch would fit in, and now it's in there pretty good. Let's put in the super batteries and see what kind of noise this thing makes. Downside of doing this, it gets much louder. That's a pretty good start. And while I could just put the default pieces back on, I feel like it just isn't quite up to standard yet. I mean, sure, it can hurl a dart now much faster than it ever could before, but is it really intimidating if it looks like this? So the first thing I wanted to address was the stock on this was a little short for kids. I found this extendable car window washer stick at Target and figured maybe I could repurpose it to be part of my stock. You can adjust the length and it has an adjustable angle on the head. Little time with the Dremel got me down to this. I also took the Dremel to the back of the gun, this little detachable piece, and I cut out two little semicircular areas. Man, the Dremel eats through this plastic. And this is a reducing female adapter, 3/4 by 1 inch. That I found in the PVC section, and I kind of chopped it up a bit so that it would fit in here but still not rotate when you close it up. So that just sort of sits in there like that. Okay, so a little more time outside with the Dremel. I also realized the entire time I've been using the part where these two telescoping rods actually connected the first time, when there was this perfectly good foamy hand grip part that I could use, since now it really didn't matter. All the mechanics that made it connect were inside. So with this, it actually fits way better inside here. Okay, so that actually has a really nice snug fit in there. And this will screw into here. You know what, let's assemble it, let's see what happens. So after one more trip to the Dremel, I cut the back piece of this off so that I could actually use these two screws here. And now, I'm pretty good with that. We have a functional extendable stock made from PVC pipe and a window washer. And while we now have a more comfortable and much faster firing gun, I think we could still do a few things. But Ryan, you say, this paltry 10-dart magazine won't get me through a battle. Well, you're right. So here we have a 25-dart drum magazine, fully loaded, ready to rock and roll. Now you may have noticed I didn't put the optics back on when I screwed this back together, because I think we can do better. Like say, a red or green dot sight. Yes, this has the option for both the red dot or green dot, depending on your mood and time of day. Now this sight is made to mount onto what's called weaver rails. And the rails that come stock on here don't exactly have deep enough grooves to really mesh up with a traditional weaver rail. So we got a better one. We have an attachment that adds an 11-slot weaver rail, which we can mount our red dot scope to. On the topic of sights though, there's a new thing that's been real popular, especially after the John Wick movies. Angled sights. We've got a pair of mountable flip-up iron sights. That one flips the other way. That will mount on either side of our red dot scope, giving us the option of 2 different ranges of engagement. But you know what? Sometimes you're gonna go inside. You need something that's ready to light up a dark area and maybe even shoot from the hip. So we have an incredibly bright flashlight paired with a laser sight to mount on the front by the barrel. It comes with this custom trigger that we can tape to the hand grip area of our gun so that you can activate it remotely. All right, let's throw all this on the gun and see what it looks like. May I present the fully kitted out, ready for Nerf, Haywood Industries War Machine. We've got the adjustable stock, the 25-round magazine, the red dot sight, the angled iron sights, a thumb-activated, very bright flashlight, as well as adjacent laser sight. It runs at just north of 25,000 RPMs on the motors with a custom activated thumb switch. Listen to the purr. Now I don't have a lot of metrics on how much faster that this actually shoots because I don't have a chronograph, but I can give it the old hand test. I would not want to get hit with that at close range. I do have an OG model for comparison. I had 2 kids, I had to get 2 because the other one would complain if they didn't get one. Pretty good hit. The new hotness. Ow, right in the pinky. So despite the fact that it says Fortnite on it, I think I've turned this into something that's actually pretty awesome. And I still have this one, so great. I also figured just in case I run out of ammunition, I mean my kids run out of ammunition, and since I've always wanted to make one, plus I'm really angling for some kind of tape sponsorship, which I haven't used any this episode. 2 18-round magazines flip taped, ready to rock and roll. Stupid. Look at this monster. Now I haven't sighted it in, so the Nerf darts don't really land anywhere remotely near where the sights point. I guess the same general direction in that they go straight, more or less. And I'm pretty confident that this flashlight is too bright to ever shine in anybody's eyes, so I wouldn't let any kids actually take it out to play with. But it sure makes it look cool. And as we know, looks are everything. So that'll be it for this episode of Technical Difficulties. I hope you have some fun modding out your own Nerf rifles and putting every ridiculous thing you can think of on them. Is all the rest of this necessary? Absolutely not. In fact, it makes it so front heavy that it's very difficult to hold in one hand. If I was going to recommend anything, it would be to leave all of this extra nonsense off. Just enjoy modding the motors and maybe get a couple of the extra magazines. Say hello to my little friend. Now I gotta pick all those up. This episode is brought to you by HBO Max. It's summertime, and that means summer blockbusters. And with HBO Max, you'll have all the movies you love all in one place. From Space Jam to Detective Pikachu, Batman Begins to Birds of Prey, Lord of the Rings to Saving Private Ryan, there is something for everyone to enjoy. And of course, we can't forget the great Studio Ghibli films. All 21 films are available right now, exclusive to HBO Max in the US. New subscribers can get a 7-day free trial by going to bit.ly/HBO Max TD to sign up. Again, that's a 7-day free trial of HBO Max if you go to bit.ly/HBO Max TD and sign up today. HBO Max, bringing you all the summer movies you need, all in one place.